She'll give us information on conservation and how to protect our soil, water, and habitat.
Now here is Greg Naftzger and Meghan Pettit.
Good morning, folks. Greg Naftzger in for our monthly visit with Meghan Pettit from the Whiteside County, what is it?
Soil and Water District.
There we go, just testing you. And she's got several topics that she wants to run through today. So, Meghan, take it away.
So every night when I come home in the dark, I meet like a group of skunks in my driveway, and I am greeted by a baby possum, and I decided to look into why. So the kits born in the spring have now reached maturity and are branching out and trying to find, food for the winter, a home for the winter, and that's why we're seeing so many more of them. I have about 3 skunks in my driveway. As long as they don't come close to my house, we will live perfectly fine together. You can do a few things to dissuade them from taking up residence. Keep food away at night, and I have a feral cat that comes around once in a while that I try to feed because I want him to stay because we have some mice. But the other night, my boyfriend checked the cameras, and there is a very large raccoon eating my cat food. So, gonna have to put that up. Keep your garbage cans closed. Be mindful of spillage from bird feeders, and you can treat your lawns for grubs in the spring and the fall, and that'll help eliminate some of their favorite food sources. Make sure you cover window wells, fill any gaps in the concrete, secure any crawl spaces. And that should deter, skunks, raccoons, anything from burrowing in there. I did find that if your dog gets sprayed by a skunk, there is a deskunking formula. And if you do 1 quart of fresh hydrogen peroxide, a cup of baking soda, and 2 tablespoons of Dawn dish soap, and you leave it on a couple minutes, and you want to rinse it off really well because it's kind of caustic and it'll burn if it's not rinsed off well. And don't use tomato juice because that is just a myth. I didn't know. I've never been sprayed by a skunk, so
neither.
It's never come up.
Never needed to know that.
And if there's lingering odors in your home, you can put out bowls of white vinegar, and that will help absorb some of the smell. And fun fact, skunks don't actually hibernate, but in severe weather, they'll sleep for a few weeks, so they'll be active most of the winter. Raccoons and possums are all doing the same type of things, which is why we're seeing so many of all 3 of them. And then it's somewhat true of coyotes as well. The young are starting to leave their parents and venture out and look for their own space. It's probably why I've heard so many of those in the last few weeks as well. I ended up, it sounded like they were right behind the house the other night, and I have goats and I have donkeys, and they were a lot closer than I would have liked. And my goats don't seem to understand danger, so they cry all the time. I'm like, you're ringing a dinner bell. You gotta be quiet. And yeah, moles too. I have a lot of moles in my yard. Looked into that as well. They're born in the spring, so they're also looking for their own territory and preparing for winter. They're usually found in soils that are rich on organic matter, which makes sense as to why they're around my house. The best solution is trapping, and owning a cat is another deterrent. So I have 3 inside cats. Apparently I need to get a couple outside cats. But I can't feed them outside because that'll bring in the skunks. So this is just a vicious cycle. You can use wind power to kind of deter them, though. Like if you put a kid's pinwheel or a homemade thumper, it said you take a bleach bottle and cut some fins on the side and you put it on a stick that's driven into the ground. That'll create vibrations in the ground, and that'll kind of drive them away. They don't like that. You can use tobacco or powdered red pepper or coffee grounds. You can sprinkle it near the entrances, and that will kind of deter them. But like gum and human hair and bleach and mothballs, none of those actually work. And you can actually, if you want to protect certain plants, you can dig like a 2 or 3 foot hole and line the bottom and the sides with wire mesh, and that'll keep them away from the plants. Then harvest is kind of winding down, but there are still people harvesting. So it's still pushing animals around. Definitely be careful, especially at night. I've almost hit several deer in the last few weeks. And then, I don't know if you guys saw anything about it. There was a cougar over in Morrison.
Yeah, there's been lots of reports in Iowa and Illinois, all over the place.
I think the one that showed up in Morrison was about a mile from the office. So, I kind of looked into it a little bit. Unfortunately, that was probably the one killed on 88 in DeKalb. But there was actually another one in Illinois. It came from Nebraska. It traveled across Iowa. It was in Illinois, and they knew because it had a GPS collar from Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. It was actually captured in Springfield on the 28th. It was found in a homeowner's backyard. Can you imagine just walking out and there's a cougar there? I'd be a little terrified.
Yeah, I read about that. It was.
Yeah, the IDNR took it to a special feline sanctuary. It went to the Exotic Feline Rescue Center in Center Point, Indiana. I think they thought that since it was already in such close proximity to humans, it needed to go to somewhere else. I think there's another one in Iowa that could be headed our way. And as a reminder, they're protected in Illinois, so you can't harm them or harass them or kill them. You just have to inform the DNR if you see one.
I would say probably the same thing here in Iowa.
Probably.
Yeah.
And then, so I feel like a bad news reporter about the drought, telling everybody all the time, but we're definitely in a drought for the Mississippi now. It's very much affecting the Mississippi River. You can tell when you go across the bridges that it's low. It's reached historically low levels from Illinois to Louisiana, and the levels are expected to continue to fall. There's a place called Tower Rock in Illinois. It's 100 miles south of St. Louis. And
yes, if you got a smartphone, that's all you've seen the last month are pictures of Tower Rock.
Yeah, historically you can only get there by boat, but right now people are walking to it, which is crazy. And there was a 19th century ship revealed in Baton Rouge called the Brookkill. It was built in 1896 and it sank in 1915, and it's still there. It's fully exposed. I've seen the photos of it. A riverboat it was christened in Iowa as the first casino boat, called the Diamond Lady.
Okay.
It sank in 2008 after being brought to Memphis. From what I understand, it sank in the ice. And looking at it, it looks like you could have seen the top deck for the last few years, but now you can see the whole boat. Like everything is there. They've been finding Civil War relics under a bridge in Memphis. That area of the river fell to minus 10.75 feet, and I did this maybe a week and a half ago, so that's probably lower than that.
Well, we need more rain.
And we need more snow, but...
Not yet.
Well, yeah, not yet. But I guess there's another La Nina winter coming, which generally means lower than average precipitation. So the long-term outlook is still dry. Unfortunately, it's affecting barge traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Barges are not loading as heavy as they usually can. Shipping costs have skyrocketed. Some of the barges are being stuck in the mud.
A lot of dredging going on up and down the river, too.
And the salt water is coming up the Mississippi as well. So the Army Corps of Engineers were going to build a 1,500-foot wide underwater levee to prevent the salt water from coming up, because there are towns in the Mississippi that rely on it for drinking water.
Oh, yeah.
I think some of this is, I did it a few weeks ago, so some of this is a little outdated. I think the last article I checked showed that the salt water had already come up and contaminated several parishes.
Yeah, I did read something about
Yeah.
that situation.
It's kind of bad. And locally, one of my sources says it's pretty hard to get into the Fulton boat ramp right now because the water's low. You have to be careful. You might drag your prop on most of them. But he did say that the walleye fishing is picking up. So if you can get your boat in the water, walleye fishing's picking up.
All right.
But yeah.
That's one thing years and years ago, when I was a kid, used to fish now and then. I live in Fulton, right along the river, so I kind of keep an eye on the water levels. And it is low there, but I don't think any lower than normal
And I think
in years past.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not as low here as it is down south.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot lower down south. I've seen a lot of photos of just half of the riverbed is just dry.
Yeah.
Which is kind of scary because the Mississippi does a lot of barge traffic. I know it's been a little hard on farmers because it's been hard to move grain down it. But yeah, it's not a great situation. Hopefully we get some rain or some snow. Not that I want the snow, but we kind of need it.
Yep. Especially get it up north and then it slowly melts and.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's actually all I had for
That's
today.
what you got for today?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, real
I must have
good.
talked really fast.
Well, what is on your agenda for the month of November? You got any outdoor projects and things going on?
Not any like projects. I've got a lot of status reviews to finish up. So I gotta go out and take a look at a bunch of stuff. Other than that, just normal everyday stuff, answering questions, talking to people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, real good. Well, let's see. This is November, so before you take off, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks
Thank
for
you. You
being
too.
in here since March, I think.
Yeah.
And have a good weekend.
Thank you. You
Okay.
too.
Gary?